Going through the daily operation while conversating with
Johnny.
What is happening out there on the front at the moment?
At the moment, you've got the, well, I call it Zelensky's ceasefire because you've got the other ceasefires before it. And since 21st of August last year, they brought in like a recommitment to this Zelensky ceasefire. And basically, what that meant was our side, like the Ukrainian side, like they've got a lot more like rules in place to make sure that we don't open up onto the opposing side. So what that effectively means is at the moment, like Ukrainian soldiers that are in the trench, like they can't basically defend themselves if it needs to be, like effective fire, stuff like that. On top of that, you've got like the separatist side who haven't really been following most of the ceasefire commitments from what I've seen anyway.
Has fighting escalated then from their side? Because I can see the ceasefire has clearly been broken.
Well, where I was, I didn't notice like anything too big, but like just down the line, like in our area of operations, like just probably the next village over, you could hear the separatists using like 115 millimeter like artillery and stuff, and then that was confirmed because I've got friends that were like in that area. They basically said like it was just like every morning basically that they just like came under shelling and stuff. And basically what has been happening a lot since the Russian build-up, the provocations from the separatists have been like getting higher, like to try and make the Ukrainians respond. The only time the Ukrainians will respond is either if one of our guys gets killed or if someone gets injured, or they keep like shelling them, like then the Ukrainians will respond with responsive fire, whatever they decide is effective.
Have you been fired at since the escalations?
On this rotation, no. My last rotation, though, was 2019, and I was there on the front line when the new Zelensky, like way back when Zelensky's new ceasefire, like the old one, was brought into place. And just before that happened, like you'd be fighting every day. It wasn't really a ceasefire, really. And then when that came into effect, like we got told like don't shoot, all that stuff. Like anyone shoots, you're gonna get punished basically. And then like as soon as like the 12 o'clock hit, everyone on our side like went quiet. And at the time, I was on guard duty in one of the positions, and like it was literally like no sooner than like 10 minutes after it gone, the separatist side, like one of the separatist positions in front of us, like started shooting like with a Kalashnikov, like that was just trying to get us to like break it, but we couldn't do anything because we got told like not to shoot back and only like log it down in a logbook.
How do you feel when if you're there to sort of retaliate and fight and you're being shot at and you can't actually fight back?
Frustrating, especially when you read on the news, like I've seen a lot of, especially on Twitter, there's a huge like misinformation campaign directed at Ukraine. And it wasn't this time, but it was like the last rotation I was on. I saw I'd just say call it propaganda because that's what it was. And it was in the area that I was in at the time. And I remember seeing it, and they basically said that we provoked them into a fight in this like propaganda that they were talking about. They made up this like story about how we were like shooting grenades at them. But I remember it because I was like a position next to it, and they started shelling us first with it, like just to start shelling for no reason. So there is a lot of provocation, and it is mainly from the separatist side. I mean, I'll probably agree. Like at some point in some areas, there might be some provocations like from the Ukrainian side, but like it's very minimal. And because of the rules we have, and like the people that are there to make sure that the rules are like kept to, it's like very minimal, like in my opinion, on the Ukrainian side.
So what do you think like Russia's goal is for the recent escalation, being such like a bit of a frozen conflict for so long?
I think like this is just my personal opinion, because like it's gone on for so long. Russia's got nowhere with like negotiations with like the Ukrainian government, with like getting anything like that will go their way so they can benefit from it. The only thing Russia benefits from now at the moment is that NATO is not in Ukraine, like, and to me, I think that's like the last thing that Russia cares about. As it stands, like you've got the Crimean water canal that's still under the control of the Ukrainians, and they've got no leeway with that. Like the Ukraine's not pushed one like bit on their decision to unblock it and restore water access. And then you've also got the issue of just the Azov Sea area. On Ukraine's side, like Ukraine wants to be able to have like unhindered access or that, and they want to get Crimea back. Well, that I don't think that will ever happen. And then you've got the issue of Donbass, and from what I've seen in the last like couple of years, Russia's just issuing like Russian passports to whoever wants it.
Mm-hmm.
Now at the moment, you've got like 500,000 like people in Donbass that have like Russian citizenship, and the DNR leader, he was saying that by the end of the year, he thinks there's going to be 1 million Russian citizens like in Donbass. So that leads me to speculate that at some point in the future, there's going to be something that's going to come from Russia, because with that many citizens, like it just seems a bit weird to give them so many and then not do anything to take that area. So either going to go with provocations like from separatists, then like blanket it as like the Ukrainians killing like Russian citizens. And while this is all going on, I think the Russians will come in a bit and take the North Crimean Canal, because once they go into Donbass officially, like there's nothing really to stop them from just saying we're taking this as well.
What was your reason for joining the Ukrainian military?
I'd followed the conflict, like I followed it from like the original like Maidan protests, like back in 2014. Originally, I used to be like, I wouldn't say like super pro-separatist, but like I used to favor towards the separatist side in the beginning, like with their cause and all that stuff. And then I eventually started watching, well, I had been at the time, I'd been watching Vice News's Russian roulette series. I was like addicted to that, like watching it every day. As the series progressed, like it kind of like gave me a bit more insight into what was going on there. And then I did some more research. And then I went more neutral and like went away from being pro-separatist, like after like a bunch of the videos of the separatists doing things and stuff came out. Because in 2015, I went to Syria to fight alongside the Kurds against ISIS. And then when you're over there, you meet all sorts of people. So I met like one or two people that had been in Ukraine fighting in Donbass. I was a bit skeptical, like when they told me, so I was like speaking with them about it, and they enlightened me a bit more about like what the Ukrainians were fighting for. Like it wasn't like how all the pro-Russian like media paint it out to be. I left Syria in like mid 2017. Came home and I didn't want to get into any like more legal trouble. I knew through a friend the military here was taking foreigners, and it was like on a legal contract and everything like that. It wasn't like Syria. I decided to come here because one, it's a paid job, so you do get money from it. Not that that's my incentive, like to come here. It's like a 3-year contract, so it's something that will help me like live if I'm going to stay here for so long. And then I knew the war was still going on. It wasn't like well reported about, and there's like still people dying on the front every day, still civilians like affected and stuff like that.
So take me back to Syria then. So when you joined YPG, how did that come about? How did you join? How did you get over there?
In 2014, in the process, I wanted to join the police. So that was like my career prospects. Like, I had no interest in the military whatsoever. Written an application to try and join, and then ISIS was about, I knew about them. I'd been following like the activity and all that, like on social media and live leak and stuff. I think it was around the time when they started killing Yazidis, and then Kobani happened, and I was like frustrated that we weren't doing anything really to help them apart from airstrikes. And then I remember just searching on Facebook one day, like I just saw a post pop up like of Western volunteers like fighting against ISIS, and remember like looking at it and then like looking more into it on Google and like trying to find all the articles I could find like had information on it. And it took me like I think maybe a month or two, and then I decided like this is it. I'm going to go do this. So like, didn't tell anyone I was going to do it. I like kept it secret, and then I think maybe like a month, maybe 3 weeks before, like I told like one of my close friends like what I'm doing. Convinced them I'm not joining ISIS, because that was like the first like thought that would cross my mind if I told someone like I'm going to go to Syria. Like, I'd made contact with the YPG like I think maybe two months before it, and they told me like think about it, like you might die and stuff like that. And then I booked my ticket. They gave me the details of where to go and who to meet. Got on a plane and landed in Soleimania, North Iraq. And then I was met by a Kurdish guy who took me to the safe house. And then maybe 3 weeks later, I was smuggled across the border into Syria.
Did you have any training before, or you just went in completely blind?
Practically completely blind, because when we got there, we had like maybe a week's worth of like weapon familiarization, and that was it, tops, and some Kurdish lessons. The majority of what I've learned is from friends I've met over there who are ex-military. Like the ex-military guys there, they're the ones that like taught a lot of the guys that were alongside them that didn't have any like experience, because they needed it like to save themselves and save the guys around them.
How did they smuggle you in?
I think we waited a couple of nights like till it was like pitch black and a bit of moonlight, and we basically just got into a car one night and they said, okay, we're going. And then they drove us to the border. I think it must have been about maybe 10-kilometer like walk. There's one point we get to the Tigris River, and they carry this huge like inflatable boat that they start pumping up, and then you like get on the boat and then you row across, and then you're on Syria, but you still have to walk away so you don't get shot at. And then you eventually meet the YPG who are waiting for you in a pickup truck. YPG is I would say it's a leftist revolutionary organization that was born out of the Syrian revolution. And you had like at the time you had the Syrian Free Syrian Army, and then you had the Syrian regime who were fighting against each other. And then you had ISIS and all the other jihadi groups. When the regime were in the areas that the YPG control, when ISIS came along, the regime fled these areas because they weren't Arab areas. They were like majority Kurdish, so they figured they would leave them to it. And at the time, the Kurds had a small people's defense unit called the YPG. And when the regime fled, like the YPG like basically took charge and defended the cities from ISIS. And it was around 2014 when ISIS came to Kobani and started attacking, like trying to cleanse it and like capture it, obviously, that the US coalition started backing them, because they realized the humanitarian disaster that would unfold if ISIS were allowed to take this border town. So from there, ISIS was beaten back with the assistance of US airstrikes and the Kurds together, and that led to like a coalition between the Kurds and the Americans, who would later go on to help them take back most of northern Syria from ISIS.
When you got there, were you just thrown straight into it?
No, first time I went there, I went to a position on the Tal Khamis front. I think we spent like 3 weeks there, just in a defensive position on the front line. Like ISIS were in front of it. It's a bit similar to how it was like over here, but just more boring. You could see the ISIS positions like 3 kilometers away. Like it was like really boring. We only came under like mortar or dishika like fire like once now and again. It was like really boring. So we asked to be sent back to international academy so we could like ask to go somewhere else. Once we got there, we got sent to Kamishlo, and then got sent to Serikani. That's it. We got sent to Serikani, and then on to Talabiat, which is a town on the border with Turkey. And that was our first operation we got into. We like surrounded the city from like all sides, like the Kobani canton, which had been pushing from Kobani, like pushed like towards the city from the west. And we pushed from the east, and then we had units from the south with some elements of like the Free Syrian Army pushed from the south as well. And then we captured that. The canton with Kobani was linked, and then after that we pushed down towards Raqqa, and then stopped on the main highway that goes all the way to Aleppo.
Is there a specific time or like a mission or target that sort of sticks out in your memory specifically?
Probably the Tel Abyad one, because that was my first one, and because of like that was like back in June time, I think, in 2015, and I think the reason it sticks out to me is because now I think it was either last year or the year before. I'm not 100% sure because my memory's like quite bad now. That Turkey like invaded northern Syria, so that like Tel Abyad's now under the control of like the Turkish-backed FSA, which is, I would say, separate from the original FSA. So now you have a bunch of jihadis like in control of Tel Abyad again. They went all the way down to the same rough area where we were stopped at, and like now they're on the outskirts of Ain Issa from my knowledge. I think it's been a while since I've checked on the maps.
How would you describe ISIS and what they do?
We've got like two categories. You've got like you've got your locals. I mean, the majority of ISIS are scum, like completely like brainwashed. There's no like converting them back to like humans again. Especially some of the stuff that I saw over there, like that they've done, is like sickening. It's like what you see on TV, like on the propaganda videos, like it's 100 times worse. After we liberated Tel Abyad, we pushed down south just before we got to the main highway. It's like mostly desert area, and there's it's like a natural like ravine, and in the ravine, some one of their propaganda videos, they would bring people, execute them, and then throw them into the ravine. And I was able to find the video. They decapitated some guy and then threw the bodies in. And then one of the locals at the time when we were pushing through, he was the one that told us about it. He was telling us like what they would do is they would like blindfold people, tell them that they're free and they can run as far as they want. And then they would be running and then they would fall in, obviously, and then they would just shoot them. So like at the moment, I don't think they know how many bodies are actually inside the bottom of it. But I did see that I think it's like a UN or maybe Amnesty International, like got a chance to go inside it. I haven't checked since though, because at the moment it is in the Turkish FSA control now.
Would you say that was like the most horrifying thing that you saw over there?
No, that's probably light scale compared to like some of the other ISIS like activities that you come across. I mean, I'd call it a mass grave. I don't know how many bodies are inside there, but like when I was there, you could see the skeletons around the mouth of the ravine that had like caught on the rocks and didn't go in. I think there was like 3 or 4 bodies around it when I was there with my friend. So it could be a mass grave or not. I don't know how many bodies are inside. Seen like rape houses, like places like schools, for instance. Like they were a big favorite of ISIS. Basically, they'll convert it into like a sexual like rape house, like for the fighters. Bomb factories, they were another big one.
So how do you think, the war against ISIS is going?
I mean, the territory is gone, but their influence, the terror is still there because now it's effectively an insurgency. Because of the way they do things over there. Like for example, when we went over, like you can't like clear every house. People do get by, and I wasn't there for the liberation for Raqqa or like the end, so I don't know how they did things then. But like when we were pushing through, like we weren't really too secure with like the people that we let go, like just random civilians without checking their identification and stuff like that. So you like these people that have been allowed to like get away, like not because on purpose, but because they don't have the resources to do what they need to do with this. Especially like looking at Al Hol camp now, like thousands of like ISIS families, like people in there, and the Kurds have got like not really much support with handling like the ISIS like prisoners and stuff. So you do get a lot that escape, and then you've got like a lot of that like hiding amongst the local civilians. So they're building their cell networks. So you've essentially got what America couldn't defeat in Iraq or like Afghanistan. It's like the biggest thing you can never defeat the insurgencies that will come after because there's still war going on. There's still stuff to take advantage of.
Did you have any problems when you left Syria?
Yeah, first time I left, I'd been in Syria for like 9 months, and then I decided to leave. Went back to Britain. I got arrested under the Terrorism Act by the police. I was never charged with terrorism. They just arrested me on pre-charge bail. So I was on that for like 8 months, and then they dropped it. I think a week or two later, I was back in Iraq, and then I stayed in Iraq for like a couple, like maybe a week or two, and then I was like smuggled across the border again. And then I was in Syria the second time for maybe like 7, 8 months, and then left and went to Greece for like 4 months, and then eventually returned home. Got arrested again arrested under pre-charge conditions again, and then I was like released on pre-charge bail. Never charged with anything. This time they said I was arrested for like planning to commit acts of terrorism against ISIS. So that's why I was arrested, apparently. After that, they released me on the pre-charge bail. That lasted like 3 or 4 months because of new legislation they brought in, so it wasn't so long. And then I think it must have been like 2 or 3 months. I just like within that time frame, I decided I'm going to go to Ukraine and join the military there.
Are you going to stay in Ukraine, or are you coming home anytime soon?
No, I'm probably going to sign another contract, like another year contract, because at the moment I've got my fiance, so me and her are planning to get married hopefully sometime this year. And then after that, like after my contract finishes, I'm hoping to like move into some sort of area of conflict journalism. Because like for the past like 10 months I've been like recording and documenting like my time in the trench, and hoping to put that together into like a short like documentary, just showcasing life in a trench in like 2021.
Would you ever go back to Syria, you think?
I'd like to go back in the future, depending like what happens. I'd like to go back like to visit, but it's so hard to like know what's going to happen there because of, like the situation, and like you don't know what's going to happen with Turkey and stuff like that. So it's hard to say.